I use these particular words. We come together to explore the eternal, to nurture the internal, and to heal the broken world, the external, the place in which we live. I want to share with you a reading from Reverend Douglas Taylor. I know I've read it here before, but every time I read it, it inspires me to think about what we do in religious community. Alone in the world, I was beset with frustration and anger at the world around me. So much injustice and hatred, so little peace and freedom. I longed to make a difference. I struggled against powers and institutions. But my actions seemed insignificant and my words were drowned out. Then I came into community, a religious community of hope and love, and here I found support and energy, vision and power, the authority of shared witness. And together we changed the world. Alone in the world, I was beset by sorrow and hurt in my life. So much loss and emptiness, so little hope and understanding. I wept for the pain in my heart. I ached from the hardships I bore. But my tears brought little relief, and my burdens grew too heavy. Then I came into community, a religious community of hope and love. Here I found support and compassion, wisdom and grace, and the power of shared suffering. And together we made life sweeter. Alone in the world, I was beset by confusion and emptiness in my soul. So much busyness and pettiness, so little depth or connection. I shriveled inside from want of real spiritual bonds, and my soul cried out for meaning. Then I came into community, a religious community of hope and love. Here I found support and encouragement, depth and diversity, and the power of sharing the journey. And together, we saved my life. For all the varied reasons that have brought us out of loneliness and into community, we give thanks. For the blessings we each bestow on one another with our energy, compassion, and prayer, we give thanks. For the blessings we become to others in need, we give thanks. And remember that we are not alone. Well, that was my sermon. No, I'm just kidding, a little. It is a sermon. It's a beautiful sermon. Douglas Taylor was the minister in Binghamton, New York. I believe he's still there. Those words inspire me to think about the purpose of our congregations and the purpose of Unitarian Universalism in the world. And I would say, and I'm not alone in this, that there are two sides to this. One side is the internal, where we are nurturing our spirits, where we are together because we need the company of others, where we need to be heard, we need our life experiences witnessed to, we need to share things like the words that Cheryl shared with us about the death of someone so many of you knew. We need that. We need the connection. We need to be close to each other. And one of the lovely things about being in a small congregation is that you can't get away from each other. We sit close together. I was once the minister at Somerset Hills, where they met in the conference room of a college. And I swear to God, Goddess, whatever, that there were people who always sat at the furthest side of the room, over at the wall there, and people at the back end of the room, and I thought, what is this? What does that mean? One day I came in and I said to the people who were setting up the room, take away all those chairs. I'm going to encourage everyone to come in to be together because we are, as Lily Tomlin once said, all in this alone together. There was a t-shirt about that many years ago. We are here to be together. If we really wanted to be alone, really alone, we wouldn't come in here, would we? Now, last August when we were at Murray Grove, I talked a bit about community, and I asked what had brought you into this congregation, and many of you said it was for the feeling of community. It was to know that you're not entirely alone. And that is one piece of why we get together. We do need that. Internally, we need that. But there is a larger piece, and there's a very long article about it in the UU World for the winter edition, about what we do with the external world, that world that surrounds us. I have a friend who describes being in a Unitarian congregation as being on an island, of being, her congregation being an oasis for her, a shelter from the storm of the world outside. And while that is one way to think of it, because as religious liberals we feel safe together and sometimes unappreciated in the wider world, and in times gone by persecuted by the world outside, we cannot escape the fact that we live in a larger place. And that the greater reason for working together in congregations and to build communities of faith is to help us develop the courage within us to go out and change that world. You know, as human beings, we are incredibly vulnerable. We are vulnerable to acts of nature. We are vulnerable to the miserable actions of many other people. But we are also vulnerable to the possibility of hope and love that other people can bring us. If we hide inside our buildings, we will never know those joys. We will only know the sorrows of the things that we are afraid of. Some of you may remember the words I always close the service with, which are, "As you go forth, may you be led by faith and not by fear." It is in these settings that we come together to remember that we have values that have deep meaning for us, that we are not entirely alone, that we have something to offer the world, which is a vision of a better world in which there is more peace, love, and justice, and that it is our hands that are doing the work of that God so many of us do not believe in, the hands of that spirit of life that so many of us do believe in, the hands that reach out to touch one another with love, because we need to know that other people care. And when you come in here, you know that you will be cared for, but there is something else going on, and that is the fact that you need to care for others in here. This is a congregation that depends on the participation of each and every one of you. Each and every one of you has a ministry of some sort. Maybe it's making the coffee, which is an important ministry in a Unitarian congregation. And today's coffee is excellent. I had the first cup. Maybe it's making the name tags. Maybe it's arranging the chairs. Maybe it's getting the funds together so that Linda can be here. Maybe it's putting the plaques on the chairs. Maybe it is planning excursions and social action campaigns to take into the outer world. But each person here has a ministry. When I was ordained, I realized in a very profound way that I was not ordained into sainthood. Not I. I'm only half kidding when I say that I am an irreverent reverend. I am irreverent. Some people enjoy my wit. Other people go, "Oh no, there she goes again." I was ordained into service. That is what ministry means to me. And the service I bring in here when I come every month is to share some of these insights with you, to remind you of the things that you already know, but the things that have gone way back in your minds, the things that you don't remember you once learned. Because life is an ongoing process of learning and remembering who we are and what we are, and who and what we can be to one another. This is a new year for this congregation in terms of its new officers and its new initiatives. It's still in the midst of its planning to move to another place. But this is a moment of renewal, a moment of shared ministry. And it is very important that you own your ministry as members of this congregation. I once gave a sermon in which I described congregational life as a garden. And I happen to like gardening, and I love flowers, and not for nothing that I lived in the Netherlands for 10 years, next to the largest orchard in the entire country, where I was an apple picker and an illegal immigrant. Hand to God, yes. And I take very seriously the notion of the hymn that we have in our book, Earth was given as a garden. Our congregations are gardens too. They are gardens of spirit and gardens of action. And in those gardens, there are people who sit on the benches and watch the flowers grow. And then there are people who get off the benches and help dig up the earth, plant the seeds and the bulbs, do the weeding, do the trimming, make the flower arrangements, and renew the garden. My wish for you in this coming year is that you be active gardeners in this congregation. I can see from all the little chalices pinned up there on the back on that table that many of you, if not all of you, go above and beyond. And I think that is a wonderful thing. I want to encourage you to go on going above and beyond in what you give to each other, what you bring to each other, the questions you ask of one another, so that you keep on opening up, you keep on flowering, you keep on showing new sides of your spiritual lives. And I wish for you too, that you put those hands to work, the hands of the song that Linda played at the beginning. What are you going to do with these hands? The singer Jewel, several years ago, sang a song about her hands. These hands are small, I know, but they are mine, and they and I are not broken. I ask you to extend your hands in the work of this congregation, so that the courage that you find in here goes with you into the outer world, where your hands can make a difference. And now we're going to take the morning offering.